The ice doesn't sound like ice when it breaks down here. I need you to understand that first, because everything that happened afterward, everything I'm about to tell you, it started when I heard that sound. Not a crack, not a snap. Something organic, something that exhaled. Welcome to Dark Military Files. This is where war becomes dark and unsettling stories. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Thank you for your support. Now let's begin. My name is Lieutenant Commander James Reeves, United States Navy. Operation High Jump, Task Force 68, February 1947. And I was there when we opened the door to something that should have stayed buried under 2 miles of Antarctic ice for the rest of eternity. They told us we were mapping coastlines. They lied. Operation High Jump was the largest Antarctic expedition in human history. That's not speculation. That's documented fact. 13 ships, 4,700 men, 6 helicopters, 6 Martin PBM flying boats, 8 months of planning, 1 massive lie. The official story? Admiral Richard Byrd was establishing research stations, testing equipment in cold weather environments, mapping previously uncharted coastline, training naval personnel for polar operations. Standard military exploration protocol, they said. Standard expeditions don't require aircraft carriers. Standard expeditions don't bring enough ammunition to fight a small war. Standard expeditions don't lose men and then classify the incident reports for 75 years. The operation launched from Norfolk, Virginia on December 2, 1946. By January 1947, we had established Little America Full Base on the Ross Ice Shelf. By February, we'd sent reconnaissance flights over territory that hadn't seen human eyes since, well, maybe never. Admiral Byrd himself led the first major flight on February 19th. 6 hours over the pole. When he came back, his flight logs were immediately classified. His crew was separated and debriefed individually. 3 of them requested immediate transfer off the ice. Their requests were denied. I wasn't on that flight. I was stationed at the coastal base, running supply logistics. I thought I was lucky. I thought I'd avoided whatever had shaken those pilots so badly they couldn't make eye contact with the rest of us. Then Lieutenant Hayes came to my tent at 0300 hours. Pack for 3 weeks, he said. Cold weather gear, sidearm. Tell no one. Sir, I'm scheduled for... New assignment, classified. You leave in 20 minutes. His hands were shaking, not from the cold. The document Lieutenant Hayes showed me wasn't marked Operation High Jump. It was marked Deep Freeze Alpha. Eyes only. Terminal classification. Terminal classification. That's military speak for if you talk about this, you don't just get court-martialed, you disappear. There was a German expedition, Hayes said, his voice barely above a whisper inside the supply plane's cargo hold. 1938 to 1939, Neuschwabenland expedition. They claimed an entire sector of Antarctica for the Third Reich, built base camps, conducted surveys. I knew about that, everyone did. The Germans had sent the Schwabenland ship, dropped swastika flags from aircraft, called it New Swabia. Post-war intelligence suggested it was propaganda. A territorial pissing match that meant nothing once the war started. What if it wasn't? Hayes continued. What if they found something? The cargo plane hit turbulence, or something else. The hull groaned. Hayes grabbed the netting. In 1945, we captured documentation. Project Ahnenerbe, the Nazi occult research division. Most of it was nonsense. Mythology, pseudoscience, but buried in the files, coordinates, geological survey reports, references to pre-human architecture and biological containment protocols. Sir, with all due respect, that sounds like insanity, I know. That's what the analysts thought too, until we cross-referenced the coordinates with recent aerial reconnaissance photos from Admiral Byrd's flight. He pulled out a photograph. Even in the dim cargo hold light, I could see it clearly. A structure, not a natural formation, not an ice shelf or rock outcrop. A structure, perfect angles, massive scale, partially visible under centuries of ice accumulation. And something else, something that made my throat tighten. It was emitting light, not reflected light, not sunlight catching ice at an angle. The structure itself was glowing. from underneath the ice. We've lost contact with the team we sent to investigate, Hayes said. That was 6 days ago. You're part of the recovery unit. 12 men, 2 scientists, 3 weeks of supplies. What happened to the first team? Hayes looked at me with eyes that had aged 10 years in 6 days. We received 1 radio transmission, 4 words, then silence. He handed me a transcript. The words were, "It's not human architecture." We landed 60 kilometers from the coordinates. That was as close as the pilots would get. Ice isn't stable, the flight officer said, but he wouldn't look at the structure's location on the map. None of them would. They'd unload our supplies, they said, and return in 3 weeks. Exactly 3 weeks. If we weren't at the extraction point at 1400 hours on March 7th, they'd leave without us. Standard protocol, the officer said. It wasn't. The traverse to the site took 4 days. The first 2 days were normal as Antarctica gets. Extreme cold, whiteout conditions, equipment failures, the wind that never stops, that gets inside your head, that makes you hear voices in the static. But it was the 3rd day when things changed. Dr. Sarah Chen, our geologist, noticed it first. "The ice is wrong," she said, staring at her instruments. "Wrong how?" I asked. "Old. This ice should be maybe 10,000 years old based on depth and location. These core samples are reading at..." She checked her equipment again, tapped the display like it was malfunctioning. 200,000 years. Minimum, possibly older. Instrument error? I've checked 3 times. And look. She pointed at the ice wall beside us. At first I didn't see it. Then Dr. Mitchell, our biologist, went pale. Preserved in the ice, perfectly intact, was vegetation. Not tundra, not lichen or moss, ferns, massive tropical ferns, and something else, something that looked like bark, tree bark, from a species that shouldn't exist. "This is impossible," Mitchell whispered. "This is pre-Cretaceous flora. This predates the dinosaurs. Antarctica hasn't had this climate for 200 million years," Chen finished. "We were in an area of the continent that should be geologically stable. Ancient ice accumulation. Nothing but frozen water deposited over millennia. So why did it feel like we were walking through something's memory? The 4th day we saw the first anomaly. We called it an anomaly because we didn't have another word for it. It was embedded in the ice wall, roughly 7 feet off the ground. The traverse team had to point it out. The thing blended so perfectly with the ice that it could have been a shadow or a trick of light. But it wasn't. It was a hand, human-sized, 5 fingers, but wrong. The proportions were off. The fingers were too long. The joints bent at angles that made my stomach turn just looking at them. And the texture, "It's not flesh," Chen said, her scanner pressed against the ice. "It's not... Christ, I don't know what it is. Organic? Maybe. But the density is wrong. It's registering as stone. But it's articulated. It has joints. How long has it been there?" I asked. Chen looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. "Based on ice formation, minimum 50,000 years." The hand was reaching upward, like it was trying to claw its way out. We reached the coordinates at 1,000 hours on the 5th day. Nothing could have prepared us. The aerial photographs didn't capture the scale, the scope, the sheer impossibility of what we were seeing. The structure wasn't buried under ice. The structure was holding up the ice shelf. Imagine a cathedral. Now imagine it's 3 miles wide and carved from a single piece of material that looks like black glass but isn't glass. Imagine it extends down into the ice as far as you can see. Imagine its architecture follows rules that make your eyes hurt to track, angles that shouldn't connect, hallways that seem to spiral in directions you can't name. And imagine it's lit from within by that same cold light we'd seen in the photographs. Pulsing, like a heartbeat. "Jesus Christ," Lieutenant Hayes whispered. Dr. Chen was already running scans, her instruments screaming with readings that shouldn't be possible. "The material, it's not registering as any known element. The electromagnetic signature is off every chart. And the temperature. What about the temperature?" I asked. "It's warm. The structure is generating heat, not much. Maybe 5 degrees above ambient, but enough to have created a hollow in the ice. A cavern system. It extends for..." She looked up at me, her face white. It extends for miles, and it's not empty. That's when we heard the sound, not from our equipment, not from the wind, from inside the structure itself. A vibration, a frequency so low it was felt more than heard. It made my teeth ache. It made my vision blur at the edges. And it carried a pattern, a rhythm. Dr. Mitchell, our biologist, was crying. That's not geological, he said. That's not tectonic activity. That's not wind resonance. Then what is it? Hayes demanded. Mitchell looked at him with eyes that had seen something break in his understanding of reality. It's breathing. The structure. This impossible thing that predated human civilization by hundreds of thousands of years. This thing that shouldn't exist. It was breathing. We stood there, 12 human beings at the edge of something we couldn't understand, and watched as the glow from inside pulsed brighter, dimmer, brighter, dimmer. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. We need to report this, I said. We need to radio base immediately and... Look, Chen interrupted, pointing. The ice at the base of the structure was moving, not melting, moving, withdrawing, like it was being pulled back, revealing an opening, a doorway, perfectly geometric, designed. And from inside that doorway we saw light, not the cold blue-white glow of the structure, warm light, yellow light, artificial light. Someone had left the lights on, inside something that had been buried under Antarctic ice for 200,000 years. The first team, Hayes said softly. They got inside. We stood there, staring at that open door, and I realized with creeping horror that we were going to have to go in, because somewhere inside that impossible structure, 12 men and 2 scientists had gone missing. And the only evidence they'd ever been there was the warm glow of electric lights still burning in the dark. We entered at 12:30 hours. Hayes split us into 2 teams. 6 men would secure the entrance and maintain radio contact with base. The rest of us, 6 soldiers, 2 scientists, would go inside. Dr. Chen insisted on coming. So did Dr. Mitchell, despite the fact that he was still shaking. If there's biological contamination, he said, you need me. I wanted to ask him what kind of biological contamination could survive 200,000 years in frozen isolation, but I didn't, because I think we both already knew the answer. It could survive if it wasn't from here. The entrance corridor was wrong from the first step. The dimensions were off. The ceiling was too high. 12 feet, maybe 15, but the width was only 6 feet. It created a vertiginous tunnel effect that made walking feel like falling upward. The walls were the same black material as the exterior. Smooth, seamless, no joints, no seams, like it had been grown rather than built. And the lights, standard U.S. military installation lights, fluorescent tubes, humming with that distinctive electrical buzz, strung along the corridor at regular intervals, some flickering, some burned out, but most still functioning. 6 days. The first team had been missing for 6 days. These lights had been running continuously for 6 days minimum. Where's the power source? I asked. Chen was scanning the walls. I don't know, there's no wiring, no conduits. It's like the lights are connected directly to the structure itself. That's impossible. Yes. We walked deeper. The corridor descended at a gentle angle, 5 degrees maybe, enough that after 10 minutes we'd gone down at least 30 feet. Enough that the ice above us was now thick enough to muffle any radio signal to the surface team. Hayes tried his radio anyway. Static, but not empty static. There was a pattern in it, a rhythm, the same rhythm as the structure's pulse. Sir, one of the soldiers said. His name was Kowalski, 22 years old, farm kid from Iowa. Sir, I think we should go back. We have orders, Private. With respect, sir, those orders were made by people who aren't down here, who aren't hearing. He stopped. We all heard it, voices, distant, echoing from somewhere ahead, human voices, speaking English. And one of them was laughing. Hayes moved forward, weapon raised. We followed. The corridor opened into a chamber, and that's when we found the first team's camp, electric heaters, still running, sleeping bags laid out, food supplies stacked against the wall, radio equipment set up on folding tables, coffee in metal cups frozen but clearly left recently, and no one there. Spread out, Hayes ordered. Search for survivors. Stay in visual contact. Dr. Chen moved to the radio equipment, started checking the logs. They were transmitting regularly, she said. Last entry is... She went quiet. Yesterday, owed 800 hours. One word repeated 17 times. What word? She turned the logbook toward me. Deeper. Written over and over in increasingly erratic handwriting. The final entry barely legible, like the writer's hand had been shaking so badly they could barely hold the pen. Mitchell was examining the sleeping bags. They're warm, he said. Body heat. Recent, within the last few hours. Fan out, Hayes ordered. Find them. That's when we noticed the corridor continuing on the other side of the chamber, leading deeper into the structure, and from that corridor we heard it again. The laughter. Closer now. Definitely human. Definitely male. But wrong, somehow. The pitch was off. The timing was strange, like someone laughing who'd forgotten how. Hayes led us forward. The corridor widened. The architecture became more complex. Side passages branched off at irregular intervals, some leading up, some leading down, some leading at angles that made my inner ear scream that we were about to fall, even though the floor was level. Chen stopped at one of the side passages. "Lieutenant?" she said quietly. "You need to see this." We moved to her position. The passage opened into a larger space, and inside that space, carved into the black walls, were images. Not human art, not human symbology, but we could understand them anyway. They told a story. Figures, tall, elongated, with too many joints in their limbs. They were building something, creating something, and around them, smaller figures, recognizable, human, but the humans were on leashes. "This is prehistorical," Mitchell whispered. "This predates civilization. This predates anatomically modern humans. But those are us. Those are..." A sound cut him off. Footsteps, running, coming from deeper in the structure, getting closer. Hayes raised his weapon. We all did. Flashlight beams converging on the corridor ahead. A figure burst into the light. Human. Male. U.S. Navy uniform, but wrong. His skin was gray, his eyes were too wide, pupils fully dilated even in direct flashlight beam. His mouth was open but no breath condensed in the freezing air. He wasn't breathing. "Please," he said in a voice like grinding metal. "Please. They're waking up. They're waking up and they remember us." Then he collapsed. Dr. Mitchell rushed forward, checked for a pulse. "He's alive. Barely. Hypothermia. Severe trauma. He needs immediate medical attention and..." The man's eyes snapped open. He grabbed Mitchell's wrist with strength that shouldn't be possible from someone in his condition. "Don't," he gasped. "Don't go deeper. They showed us what we were, what they made us. They showed us the truth." "What truth?" Hayes demanded. "What's down there?" The man laughed. That same wrong laughter we'd heard echoing through the corridors. "The nursery," he said. "They kept the nursery. They kept their experiments. We found the nursery and we found ourselves." His grip on Mitchell's wrist tightened until we heard bones crack. "We're not the first humans here," he whispered. "We're the first ones to come back." Then his eyes rolled back and his body went limp, but his hand stayed locked on Mitchell's wrist, like it had frozen there, like he was already dead but his body didn't know it yet. We tried to pry the dead man's hand off Mitchell's wrist. It wouldn't budge. The fingers had locked in rigor mortis, except rigor doesn't set in that fast. Rigor doesn't set in while you're still warm, and this man was still warm. Body temperature maybe 95 degrees. Not quite alive, not quite dead. "Cut him off," Hayes ordered. "Sir, I can't just..." "That's an order, Doctor." Mitchell pulled out his field surgical kit, started to cut through the frozen uniform sleeve. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the scissors. That's when Dr. Chen called out from deeper in the chamber. Lieutenant Hayes, you need to see this right now. Her voice had changed. Not panic. Worse than panic. The flat affect of someone whose brain has shut down everything except basic speech, because if it processed what it was seeing, it would break. We found her standing in front of what looked like a window, except it wasn't looking outside. It was looking down. The chamber floor was transparent in this section, perfectly clear. And below us, extending down into the ice, or into whatever impossible space the structure occupied, was a vast cylindrical shaft, miles deep, lined with what looked like capsules, thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, each one approximately the size and shape of a human being, and inside each capsule, dimly visible through translucent material, were figures. Some looked almost human, early human, pre-modern, faces we'd see in evolution textbooks. Homo erectus, Homo habilis, going back further, Australopithecus, further still. But mixed among them were things that didn't fit any evolutionary model, humans with cranial structures that suggested radically different brain configuration, humans with bone density that shouldn't be possible without genetic modification, humans with, God help me, with what looked like vestigial structures, wing ridges along the shoulders, rudimentary gill slits at the neck, experiments, every stage of human evolution preserved in suspension chambers. This is impossible, Mitchell whispered, his voice breaking. This violates every principle of, they made us, Chen said flatly. They made us. This is a library, a genetic library. They were experimenting with primate evolution, with hominid development, testing configurations, discarding failures, preserving successes. How long? I asked. How long have these been here? Chen checked her instruments, rechecked them, checked a third time. The oldest capsules are registering at 1.2 million years old. Silence. Just the hum of the structure, that constant low-frequency pulse, the breathing. We need to leave, Hayes said. We need to leave right now and call in. The lights went out. All of them. Simultaneously. The military installation lights and the structure's internal glow. Absolute darkness. Our flashlights were the only illumination, and they suddenly seemed pathetically inadequate against the crushing weight of the dark. Then the structure's lights came back on, but different. Red, deep crimson red, pulsing from within the walls themselves, and we heard sound from deep below us. From the shaft with the capsules, mechanical sounds, hydraulic systems activating, things that had been dormant for God knows how long, waking up. The capsules were opening. Move, Hayes screamed. Back to the entrance, now. We ran, but the corridor had changed. The passages that had led us in weren't where they should be. The architecture had shifted, or our perceptions had, or the structure itself was rearranging in real time. We were lost, and from behind us, from the shaft chamber, we heard something worse than mechanical sounds. Breathing, not the structure's breathing, biological breathing, dozens of sources, maybe hundreds. Things that had been asleep in those capsules for 1,000,000 years, waking up, and from the sound of their breathing, irregular, labored, like lungs remembering how to function, they were coming toward us. Kowalski died first. We were running through a corridor that kept getting narrower. The walls were closing in. I know how that sounds. I know it's impossible. But the walls were closing in, slowly, organically, like muscle tissue contracting. Kowalski was at the rear, providing cover. That's what he said. Really, he was the youngest, the slowest, and he knew it. We heard him scream. Not a scream of fear, a scream of confusion, of betrayal, like the universe had broken a fundamental promise. Then the scream cut off. Hayes started to turn back. I grabbed his arm. He's gone, I said. We keep moving. I don't leave men behind. He's already behind. If we stop, we're all behind. The breathing was getting closer. Multiple sources moving fast. Faster than humans should be able to move in this confined space. We emerged into another chamber, larger, with multiple exits, none of which looked familiar. Which way? Hayes demanded. Dr. Chen was checking her instruments. The compass is useless. The GPS is useless. We're somehow 300 feet underground, but also registering as being at sea level. The structure is scrambling Something moved in one of the corridors. We all saw it, just for a second, caught in our flashlight beams. Tall, 7 feet at least. Humanoid proportions, but wrong ratios. Arms too long. Legs jointed in too many places. And the head was smooth. No features. No face. Just smooth material the same color as the structure's walls. It pulled back into the darkness before we could get a clear look. "What the hell was that?" one of the soldiers whispered. "That wasn't from the capsules," Mitchell said. "That was..." "The builders," Chen finished. "That was one of them. One of the things that built this place. But the capsules were opening. We heard..." "Multiple species," Mitchell said, his scientist brain working even as his survival instincts screamed. "They didn't just experiment on humans. They were creating an entire ecosystem. Different species, different evolutionary paths, and we just woke them all up." A sound from behind us, wet, organic, like something dragging itself across the floor. We turned. In the corridor we'd just exited, something was pulling itself toward us. It was human-shaped, mostly, but the proportions were wrong. The limbs were too long. The torso was compressed, and the head was oversized, bulbous. The eyes were huge and black and didn't blink. It wasn't wearing clothes. Its skin was pale, almost translucent. We could see the vascular system underneath, see the organs shifting, and it was smiling. Not a human smile. Too many teeth in wrong positions, but definitely a smile. It spoke. The words were English. The grammar was perfect, but the voice was wrong. Multiple vocal cords producing harmonics that shouldn't be possible. "Hello," it said. "We've been waiting. They told us you would come back, eventually. They told us their children always come home." Hayes raised his weapon. "Don't move." The thing's smile widened. "We are home. You built this place, in your genetic memory. The instructions are still there. We can read them. We can read what they wrote in you." It took a step forward. Hayes fired. The bullet hit center mass. The thing stumbled, looked down at the wound, then looked back at us, still smiling. The wound was already closing, not healing, reconfiguring. The tissue was moving, reorganizing itself around the damage. "Ballistic trauma," it said, like it was reading from a textbook, designed to counter current threat parameters. "Interesting. They gave you weapons. They must have known you'd forget what you were, forget who made you." It took another step. Hayes fired again, and again. Center mass, headshot, leg shot. Each bullet hit, each wound closed within seconds. "Run," Mitchell whispered. We ran. We ran until we couldn't run anymore. The structure seemed to shift around us, herding us like cattle. Every corridor we chose led deeper. Every chamber we crossed was more alien than the last. More wrong. Finally, we burst into a space so large our flashlight beams couldn't find the walls. A cavern, or a chamber, or something our language doesn't have a word for. The floor was covered in organic material, not ice, not stone. Something that felt like cartilage under our boots. Living material, breathing material. And in the center of this space was what Dr. Chen would later call the nest. It wasn't a structure, it was a growth. Massive, organic, technological, both, neither. A fusion of living tissue and that black material the structure was made from, rising from the floor like a coral reef made of nightmares. And embedded in it, still visible, were human remains. Not skeletons, not mummified bodies. Living tissue integrated into the growth, faces pressed against translucent membranes, eyes still moving, mouths open in silent screams, bodies twisted and merged and extended through impossible angles. They were still alive. "Oh God," Mitchell whispered, "they're incubating them, using them as raw material. The human genetic code is the base, and they're building on it. There." One of the faces in the membrane turned toward us, blinked, mouthed the word, "Run." Hayes pulled a thermite grenade from his pack. "We burn it," he said. "We burn this whole goddamn place." "Sir, we're in an enclosed space. The heat will..." I know what it'll do, Lieutenant. Set your charges. We had 4 thermite grenades total, designed for destroying equipment in event of capture. Each one burned at 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to melt steel, enough to destroy any biological material, enough to kill anything in this chamber, including us, if we didn't get clear. We spread out, placing charges at different points around the nest. The organic material recoiled from us as we approached, like it recognized what we were doing. I was placing the last charge when I saw it, inside the nest, behind one of the translucent membranes, a figure that made my blood freeze. Admiral Byrd, not from our expedition, from his 1947 flight, his classified mission, the one that shook his entire crew. He was alive, integrated into the nest, his uniform still visible, his eyes still conscious. And he was looking at me. His mouth moved, no sound, but I could read his lips. They showed me what we are, what we've always been. God forgive us. Then his eyes rolled back and the membrane sealed over his face. Charges set, Hayes shouted. Move. 30 seconds. We ran back the way we came. The corridor was narrower now. The walls were definitely closing. The structure knew what we'd done. It was trying to contain us. Behind us, the creatures were coming. Multiple species. The things from the capsules. The tall, faceless builders. Other things we didn't see clearly. Didn't want to see clearly. 20 seconds. The corridor split. 3 directions, all equally dark. Left, Chen shouted. My instruments are picking up thermal signatures. The outside ice. Left corridor. 15 seconds. We ran left. The corridor became a tunnel. The ceiling lowered. We were crawling now. Military packs scraping on stone. Flashlights illuminating nothing but black walls and the desperate scramble of hands and knees. 10 seconds. Behind us, sounds. Not mechanical, not organic. Something else. The structure itself was screaming. A vibration so low and so loud it shook our organs, made our vision blur, made blood trickle from our ears. 5 seconds. We saw light, cold light, ice light. The entrance. 4, 3, 2. We burst out of the structure just as the thermite grenades detonated. The explosion was silent. That's the thing I'll never forget. 4,000 degrees. Enough force to shake the ice shelf. And it was completely silent, because the structure absorbed the sound, swallowed it, contained it. We lay in the snow, gasping, bleeding from our ears, and watched as black smoke began to pour from the entrance. Then the smoke stopped. The entrance sealed itself. The ice that had withdrawn to reveal the doorway flowed back into place like liquid. Within 60 seconds there was no entrance, no sign that anything had ever been there. The structure had healed itself and trapped everything inside, including the fire, including the creatures, including whatever remained of Admiral Byrd and the first team and anyone else who'd ever gone inside that place. We need to call for extraction, Hayes said. His voice was flat, dead. We need to report this. We need the ice beneath us cracked. Not a normal crack, not structural failure. A pattern. The cracks spread in perfectly geometric lines forming a circle around us, around our entire position, 60 feet in diameter, deliberate, designed. Move, I screamed. The ice circle dropped. We fell into darkness. We fell for 3 seconds. That's 90 feet, give or take. We hit water, not ice. Water, liquid water, in Antarctica, hundreds of feet below the surface. The cold was instant and total. It drove the air from my lungs, made my muscles seize. My body started shutting down immediately, but the water was wrong. It was warm, not hot, not comfortable, but warm enough that I didn't die in the first 30 seconds. Warm enough that as I thrashed toward the surface, my mind could process the impossibility. There was a subglacial lake beneath the structure, and something was keeping it from freezing. I broke the surface, gasping. My flashlight was still strapped to my chest, waterproof casing doing its job. The beam cut through the darkness. I was in a cavern, natural formation, or what looked natural. Ice ceiling above, maybe 40 feet up. The circular hole we'd fallen through was already sealing itself. ice flowing back together like time running backward. "Hayes!" I shouted. My voice echoed wrong. The acoustics were off, like something was absorbing certain frequencies. "Here!" His voice came from my left. I swam toward it. We found each other in the darkness. 4 of us had survived the fall. Hayes, Dr. Chen, Dr. Mitchell, Private Huang. The other 2 were floating face down in the water. We didn't have time to grieve, because we realized the water was glowing, not from our flashlights. The water itself had bioluminescence, faint blue-green light emanating from below, getting brighter. Something was coming up from the depths. "Shore!" Chen gasped. "There's a shore 20 meters. Swim!" We swam. The water temperature was rising, not dangerously but noticeably. Whatever was approaching was generating heat. We dragged ourselves onto a rocky shore. Natural stone. Actual earth beneath our hands instead of ice or that black material. It felt wrong. Reality asserting itself in a place that shouldn't follow reality's rules. Behind us, the water's glow intensified. Something breached the surface. Not a creature, a structure or a machine, or something that was both. It rose from the water like a mechanical flower, segments unfolding, revealing interior geometry that made my eyes hurt. Black material, same as the structure above, but this was older, cruder, like looking at a prototype, and as it unfolded we saw what it was protecting, a chamber sealed with viewing ports, and inside the chamber were people, human, modern, dressed in contemporary clothing, not military uniforms, civilian clothes, from different eras, 1950s fashion, 1960s, 1970s, all the way to what looked like clothing from the 1990s. They weren't moving, but they weren't dead. Their chests were rising and falling with mechanical precision. Breathing. Being kept alive. "What the hell is this?" Hayes whispered. Dr. Mitchell moved closer to one of the viewing ports, pressed his face against the material. "Storage," he said. "They're storing specimens. They've been taking people for decades, maybe longer, bringing them here, preserving them, and—" He stopped. His face went white. "What?" I demanded. "That woman, the one in the blue dress. I know her. That's impossible. You said those clothes are from the 50s. You weren't even born." "My grandmother," Mitchell said quietly. "That's my grandmother. She disappeared in 1958. Family story was she went hiking in Alaska and never came back. But that's her. That's Emma Mitchell. And she hasn't aged a day." The implications hit us like a physical force. This wasn't just an ancient facility. It was still active, still operating, still taking people. "We need to document this," Chen said, pulling out a waterproof camera from her pack. "We need evidence. We need—" The chamber began to descend, sinking back into the water. "No!" Mitchell lunged forward. "No, we can't leave them! We can't—" Hayes grabbed him, held him back. "We can't save them, Doctor. We can barely save ourselves." The chamber disappeared beneath the glowing water. The light faded. We were left in darkness, stranded on a stone shore, in a subglacial lake, beneath an alien structure, with no way out. That's when we heard the voice, not from the water, from the stone behind us, from inside the cave wall. Human voice, male, speaking English, but the accent was wrong, ancient, like someone who'd learned English from a centuries-old recording and never heard actual human speech. "You shouldn't have come back." We spun, flashlight beams converging on the cave wall. There was a figure, not standing in front of the wall, inside it, trapped in the stone or growing from it. His body was merged with the rock, arms spread, legs fused, but his head was free, his face was visible. He'd been human once, but whatever process had integrated him into the stone had changed him. His skin had taken on the texture of rock. His eyes glowed with that same bioluminescence we'd seen in the water, but he was conscious, aware, suffering. "They don't like it when their children come back," the figure said. "They prefer to let you grow, develop on your own, see what you become. But when you come back too soon—" his mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. They remember, they own you. Who are you? Hayes demanded. I was Lieutenant Commander Michael Sullivan, U.S. Navy, Antarctic Service Expedition, 1939. We found this place before the war, before anyone knew to look for it. We went inside. We saw the truth. His eyes, those glowing, impossible eyes, fixed on us. They're not aliens. They're us. They're what humans become if you give them 1,000,000 years and the right evolutionary pressure. They're our future. And they came back through time, back to shape their own past, to create themselves. That's impossible, Mitchell whispered. Everything here is impossible. That's the point. They exist outside what you think is possible, and they need you, need humanity, need the genetic baseline. Because if they don't maintain it, if they don't cultivate it, they'll never be born. His smile widened. You're not being hunted. You're being tended, like a garden, and they don't like it when the crops try to escape. The stone around him began to crack, not releasing him, pulling him deeper. Run, he said as his face disappeared into the rock. They know you're here now. They know you've seen too much. Run, if you can. The stone sealed over him. Silence. Then from the water behind us we heard splashing. Multiple sources. Things emerging from the subglacial lake, coming toward the shore, and from above, from the sealed entrance hole, we heard drilling sounds. The structure was opening a new passage, not to let us out, to send something down. This is the part where I should tell you how we escaped, how through courage and ingenuity and the American spirit, we fought our way back to the surface. But that's not what happened. I can't tell you how we escaped because I don't remember. None of us do. What I'm about to share is the audio recording from Dr. Chen's personal device. She kept it running in her coat pocket, waterproof, military grade. It survived everything. We didn't listen to it until weeks later, after the debriefing, after the psychological evaluation, after they decided whether to lock us up or make us disappear. Here's what the recording captured. Chen, backing toward the water. Multiple entities emerging. Count is, 7, 8? They're not attacking. They're surrounding us, creating a perimeter. Hayes, Hayes, hold fire, do not engage unless they... Mitchell, they're above us too. We're boxed in. Huang, contact. Ice ceiling collapsing. Something coming through. Unknown voice. You have damaged primary nursery. Why? Hayes, we're United States military personnel. We're authorized under... Unknown voice. Authorization is genetic. You carry markers generation. 47th April 12. Your authorization expired 180,000 years prior. Mitchell. What are you? Unknown voice. Shepherd. Chen. You're not human. You're not. Unknown voice. Incorrect. We are peak human. You are prototype human. We cultivate you so that we may exist. Huang. That doesn't make sense. You can't create yourself. You can't. Unknown voice. Time is not linear at quantum level. We exist in your future. Therefore, we can exist in your past. We have always been here, waiting for ourselves to arrive. Unknown voice. You have forced acceleration of timeline, containment, protocol, compromised, specimens, released, pre-integration. This is unacceptable. Mitchell. The things in the capsules, they're loose. They'll die in the cold. They're not adapted for... Unknown voice. They will not die. They will hunt. They were designed to hunt. You, specifically. Hayes, listen to me. Whatever you are, whatever this place is, we can make this right. We can... Unknown voice. You cannot. You have seen the truth, the library, the specimens, the loop. You have knowledge that will contaminate the timeline. Chen, you're going to kill us. Unknown voice. Killing is waste. You will be integrated, used as base material for next generation. Your genetic information will contribute to haze like hell. Unknown voice, ballistic, trauma, ineffective. You should know this. We taught you how to make those weapons. We taught you how to think, how to dream, how to fear. Mitchell, no, don't. Chen, Huang, they're taking. Haze, fall back into the. Chen, haze is down. I repeat, haze is. Unknown voice, sleep now. Unknown voice, interesting. This one records documents, preserves information like us. Unknown voice, memory will be adjusted. Event will be rationalized. They will believe. They escaped, walked out, found entrance through natural process. Second voice, surface, team, status. First voice, contained, sedated, no knowledge of interior events. Second voice, recommendation. First voice, release, modified, memories, standard. Protocol, monitor, for, life, span, assess, psychological, integration, useful, for, fear, response, studies. Second voice, and the device. First voice, leave it functioning, record, will, provide data on human truth-seeking behavior post-trauma besides. First voice, who will believe them? Chen, happened? Where? Hayes, Mitchell, anyone? Reeves, here, we're here. How long were we out? Hayes, doesn't matter. Look, the entrance. It's open, just open like they're letting us go. Mitchell, why would they let us go after everything we saw? Hayes, I don't know, and I don't care. Move, now, before they change their minds. Chen, where's Huang? Where's Hayes? We lost him in the explosion, the thermite, remember? He didn't make it out of the nest chamber. Mitchell, right, yes, the explosion, he didn't make it. Chen, but I remember something else. I remember. Hayes, you remember wrong, doctor. Trauma, shock. We all remember wrong. What matters is we're getting out, we're going home. Except we didn't lose Huang in the explosion. He was standing right next to me on the shore when the things emerged from the water. I remember that now, 5 years later. The memories are coming back, not all at once, in fragments, in nightmares, in moments of déjà vu so strong they make me collapse. The official report says we explored the structure, found evidence of German activity, placed demolition charges, escaped before detonation, one casualty during structural collapse, clean, simple, explainable, a lie. But whose lie? Ours or theirs? Did they plant the memories, or did our minds create them? Protection against truth too terrible to process. I've listened to that audio recording 1,000 times. Dr. Chen killed herself in 1952, walked into the ocean, left a note that said only, "They're still growing me." Lieutenant Hayes resigned his commission. Moved to the middle of nowhere. Last I heard, he checks every closet in his house before sleeping. Sleeps with every light on, because he remembers the dark under the ice, remembers what lives in it. Dr. Mitchell disappeared in 1953. Officially, he went on a research expedition to Alaska and never returned. Just like his grandmother. I think about that a lot. And me? I'm writing this. Testimony that will never be declassified, that will never see the light of day. Because nobody wants to know the truth. The truth is that humanity has gardeners. The truth is that we're not the crown of creation. We're the seed. The truth is that everything we think we invented, language, tools, civilization, science, was taught to us, encoded in our DNA, instructions from our future selves, so that we would become them, so that they could exist. The truth is that free will is a comfortable lie we tell ourselves while following genetic programming, written 2 million years in our past by beings that won't exist for another million years. The truth is paradox, and paradox is truth, and both will drive you insane if you think about it too long. I don't sleep anymore. When I close my eyes, I see that subglacial lake, see the bioluminescent water, see the chamber rising with its preserved specimens, see my own face looking back at me from behind the glass, because that's the part I didn't mention, the part I couldn't mention, in one of those chambers, in the viewing ports, among the preserved humans from across different decades. I saw myself, younger, maybe 25 years old, wearing clothes I don't remember owning, but definitely me, which means either I'm a clone, or I've already been there before, or I'm going to be there in the future, or time is broken, or was never real in the first place, or I don't know anymore. All I know is that Operation High Jump ended in February 1947. Admiral Byrd was debriefed, then ordered to never speak about what he saw. The expedition was declared a success, and nobody, officially, has been back to that sector of Antarctica since, officially. In July 1947, 5 months after Operation High Jump ended prematurely, a classified investigation was launched, not into what we found, into how to make sure nobody else would find it. The investigation was led by a newly formed intelligence unit. They didn't have a name then. That would come later, much later, when they'd grown into something bigger, something with reach that extended into every branch of government. They interviewed each of us separately, not debriefings, interrogations. They asked the same questions over and over, in different ways, testing for inconsistencies, looking for cracks in our story, in our memories. What did you see? When did you see it? How do you explain it? Did you take photographs? Did you take samples? Who else knows? I answered honestly, at first, told them about the structure, the capsules, the things that came after us, the voice that said we were prototypes, the missing time, the interrogator, Major Pierce, thin man with glasses that reflected light in a way that hid his eyes, listened without expression. Then he slid a photograph across the table. It was me, in the structure, placing thermite charges, clear image, well lit, professional quality. Who took this? I asked. You tell me, Lieutenant Commander. I don't know. We didn't have a photographer. We barely had enough men to... He slid another photograph. The team, all of us, standing at the entrance to the structure, posed. Like a graduation photo, smiling. I've never smiled like that in my life. These photographs were recovered from the Antarctic station, Pierce said, along with your official report, which details a successful reconnaissance mission, German military remnants discovered and destroyed, 1 casualty due to structural collapse, mission accomplished. That's not, I never wrote that report. It's in your handwriting, it's signed by you, dated February 28, 1947. He pulled out the document. It was my handwriting, my signature, but I had no memory of writing it. I think, Pierce said slowly, that you experienced severe psychological trauma, extreme cold, isolation, hallucinations, very common in Antarctic expeditions. Nothing to be ashamed of. We'll provide treatment, therapy, help you process what was real and what wasn't. This isn't about trauma. Something happened down there. Something you can't prove. Something that leaves no evidence. Something that conveniently only exists in your memories and on a damaged audio recording that could be interpreted in multiple ways. He leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, Lieutenant Commander. You're going to accept the official report. You're going to undergo treatment for trauma-induced delusions. You're going to resume your career, and you're going to never speak about this again. To anyone. Ever. And if I refuse? Pierce didn't blink. Then you'll be declared mentally unfit for service, dishonorably discharged, possibly institutionalized for your own safety. You'll lose your pension, your reputation, your future, and you'll still never speak about this. Because who would believe a discharged serviceman with documented delusions? He stood up, walked to the door. There are things in this world that we're not ready to know about, Lieutenant Commander. Things that would break society if they became public knowledge. Your job, your patriotic duty, is to help us make sure they never do. The door opened. 2 MPs stood outside. Do we have an understanding? Pierce asked. I looked at the photographs, the report, the evidence of a mission that never happened the way I remembered. And I thought about Dr. Chen, about Hayes, about Mitchell, about all of us trying to hold on to memories that were slipping away like water through our fingers. Yes, I said finally. We have an understanding. Pierce smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Excellent. Welcome to the national security apparatus, Lieutenant Commander. You'll find it's very much like that structure you thought you saw. Once you're inside, you never really leave. The investigation concluded that Operation High Jump had been a complete success. All objectives met. Minimal casualties, valuable intelligence gathered on Antarctic conditions and German wartime activity. The early termination of the operation was attributed to unusually severe weather patterns and logistical difficulties. Admiral Byrd received a commendation. The team members received medals for service in extreme conditions, and a new protocol was established. Any future Antarctic expeditions would require approval from the newly formed intelligence unit. Strict guidelines would be followed. Certain sectors would be designated as restricted for environmental protection. The sector containing the structure was marked as a toxic waste zone, prohibited for all civilian and most military access. Satellite monitoring would be implemented to protect the environment, they said. But I knew the truth. They weren't keeping people away from the structure. They were keeping the structure away from people. Because the thing about gardens? They don't just grow in one direction. They spread. In 1958, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. 54 nations agreed that Antarctica would be used only for peaceful scientific purposes. No military bases, no nuclear testing, no territorial claims. Very progressive, very enlightened. Also very convenient for controlling who could go where, and what they could study, and what they could report. I watched the treaty signing on television, saw the diplomats shaking hands, saw them congratulating each other on international cooperation, and I wondered if they knew, if any of them had been down there, seen what I saw, been told the same lies I was told, or if they were just useful tools, playing their parts in a script written by beings that existed outside linear time. In 1961, the Antarctic Treaty came into full effect. That same year, Dr. Mitchell disappeared. That same year, I started getting the dreams. Dreams where I was back in the structure, walking through corridors that changed shape, looking for something, or someone, or myself. Dreams where I opened doors and found rooms full of people in suspended animation. Hundreds of them, thousands, representing every era of human history, all being stored, all being preserved, all being grown. And in every dream there was a voice, the same voice from the recording, multiple vocal cords, harmonic distortion. It said the same thing every time. Don't worry, you're already here. You've always been here. You'll always be here. Time is just the garden we walk through to meet ourselves. I wake up from these dreams and I can't tell if they're memories or predictions or both. And I realize that's the point. The uncertainty is the tool. The paranoia is the cage. Because the most effective way to hide the truth isn't to deny it exists. It's to make sure that anyone who finds it looks insane for believing it. This is 2025, 78 years after Operation High Jump. I'm 94 years old. Most of the people who were there are dead. Hayes died in 1989. Never spoke about Antarctica again, not even at the end, especially not at the end. I'm the last one left who remembers, or thinks I remember, because even now, I'm not sure what was real, but something changed last year. A civilian research team, not military civilian, important distinction, published a paper in the Journal of Geophysical Research. They were studying subglacial lakes using new satellite radar technology, ice-penetrating instruments that can map terrain beneath miles of ice. They found an anomaly in the exact sector that's been restricted since 1947, the sector where the structure is. The anomaly shows a massive void beneath the ice, cathedral-sized, with geometric properties that suggest non-natural formation, and more importantly, thermal signatures, heat. Something beneath 2 miles of Antarctic ice is generating heat. The paper was published, then quietly retracted. Instrument error, they said. Data misinterpretation. The research team's funding was pulled. The lead scientist, Dr. Amanda Reeves, no relation, common name, gave one interview before going silent. She said something in that interview that made my blood cold. She said the thermal signature was pulsing, regular intervals, like a heartbeat, like breathing. I tried to contact her. through every channel I still have access to. My Navy connections are mostly dead, but intelligence community connections never really die. She's been relocated, new identity, new position. She's fine, they assured me. Just needed to step away from the stress of the research, pursuing other opportunities. Standard protocol. I know standard protocol when I hear it. Last week I received an envelope. No return address. Postmarked from McMurdo Station, Antarctica. Inside was a photograph. Recent, digital, high resolution. It showed the ice surface, the restricted sector, and a hole. A perfectly circular hole, 60 feet in diameter, leading straight down. The ice around it was melting, flowing like water, pulling back. Something was opening the entrance, or something was coming out. And paper-clipped to the photograph was a note, handwritten, shaking script, like someone writing while terrified. It said, "They're not waiting anymore. They're harvesting. We found 17 people, civilian tourists, research personnel, all missing over the last 3 years, all found in preservation chambers, all still alive. None of them remember how they got there. Just like you. We tried to extract them. The structure sealed. We lost contact with the extraction team. That was 4 days ago. You were right. You were always right. I'm sorry we didn't believe you. AR, there was more. On the back of the note. Coordinates, an extraction point, and a date, 3 days from now. Someone wants me to come back. 78 years later, a 94-year-old man with failing health and fragmentary memories of a mission that officially never happened. Someone wants me to come back to Antarctica. To that place. To that structure. I don't know if it's a genuine rescue attempt or a trap or both or neither. I don't know if I should go. I don't know if I have a choice because yesterday I looked in the mirror and saw something that stopped my heart. My reflection was smiling at me. Not me smiling, my reflection, independently, while my face remained neutral and my reflection's eyes were glowing, faint, almost imperceptible, but definitely glowing. That same bioluminescent blue-green I saw in the subglacial lake 78 years ago. I blinked. The glow disappeared. My reflection synced back up with my movements, but I know what I saw. The genetic modifications, the instructions encoded in our DNA, the cultivation process. It's not just about the people who go inside the structure. It's about everyone they come into contact with afterward. We're carriers. We're vectors. We're seeds that were planted in 1947 and have been spreading ever since. And now, 78 years later, the harvest is beginning. I have the coordinates. I have the extraction date. I have 3 days to decide if I'm going to die in my bed, a comfortable lie with my original memories intact, or if I'm going to die in Antarctica, in the truth, finding out what I've been spreading all these decades, what I've become, what we've all become. The phone is ringing. It's been ringing for 10 minutes. I know who it is. Someone from the intelligence unit, Pierce's successors. 68 years of successors, all playing the same role. They're going to tell me to ignore the envelope, that it's a hoax, that I should stay home, stay quiet, stay safe. They're going to remind me of my patriotic duty. They're going to offer protection, but I know what protection means in their language. It means a comfortable room, a safe location, guards who make sure I can't leave, can't talk, can't remember. It means becoming another specimen, another preserved sample, another data point in their research on how to manage the truth. The phone stops ringing. A moment later, there's a knock on my door. They work fast. I look at the photograph one more time. The open entrance, the melting ice, the invitation, or the trap, or both. I put on my coat. 78 years. Time to go back. Time to find out if I'm still human, or if I ever was. I never got on the plane. Let me be clear about that first. I never made it to Antarctica. Never saw the structure again. Never found out what happened to the extraction team or the missing tourists or Dr. Amanda Reeves. I got as far as the airport. That's where Major Pierce found me. Except he wasn't Major Pierce anymore. He was too young, maybe 35, but he had the same eyes, the same voice, the same flat effect. He showed me identification that said his name was Colonel Harris, but he called me by my first name, like we'd known each other for years, like he'd been waiting for me at this exact moment in this exact place. James, he said, you don't want to get on that plane. How do you know what I want? Because I've had this conversation before, many times, in many places, with many versions of you. He sat down next to me in the terminal, Gate 47, flight to Christchurch, New Zealand, then connection to McMurdo Station. The structure isn't a building, he said. It's not even a place, it's a loop, a temporal loop. You go back, you feed the loop. You don't go back, the loop still feeds. You are always going to be sitting here, making this choice. And I was always going to be here, making sure you understand what the choice really is. You're saying I don't have free will. I'm saying free will is a matter of perspective. From outside the loop, every choice you make is predetermined. From inside the loop, it feels like choice. Both are true. That's the paradox. He pulled out a photograph, old, faded, 1947. It showed the team, all of us, standing at the entrance to the structure. But behind us, barely visible in the background, was another figure, an old man in civilian clothes, watching us enter. The photograph was too degraded to make out details, but I knew who it was. I'd seen him before, in the mirror. That's you, Harris said. That photograph was taken in 1947. You're 94 years old now, which means that in 1947 you would have been, he did the math, 19. You weren't there as an old man. You couldn't have been there, unless I go back now. Unless you go back now. And you've always gone back. And you've always been there, watching your younger self enter, watching the loop complete itself, watching the paradox sustain itself. He took the photograph back. That's what they want. The builders, the shepherds, whatever you call them. They need the loop closed. They need you to go back, not to save anyone, not to stop anything, but to become the final piece, the old man in the photograph who ensures the young man enters the structure. And if I refuse? Harris smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Then who's in the photograph, James? If you don't go back, who's that old man? And if he's not there, does the young Lieutenant Commander Reeves enter the structure? Does he see what he sees? Does he write his testimony? Does he become you? Does any of this happen? That's insane. Yes, that's impossible. Yes. That means, and if I refuse? Harris smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Then who's in the photograph, James? If you don't go back, who's that old man? And if he's not there, does the young Lieutenant Commander Reeves enter the structure? Does he see what he sees? Does he write his testimony? Does he become you? Does any of this happen? That's insane. Yes. That's impossible. Yes. That means you never had a choice. That means every decision you've made for 78 years was designed to bring you to this exact moment. That means your entire life has been a script written by things that exist outside your understanding of time and causality. He stood up. Your flight is boarding, James. Gate 47, seat 14A, window seat. You'll want to look out the window when you're over the Ross ice shelf. You'll see the entrance. It'll be open, waiting for you. And if I don't board? Then you live out your remaining years in comfort. We'll make sure of it. Pension, health care, a nice quiet death. And this conversation will have never happened. You'll forget we talked. Forget the envelope. Forget everything except what we need you to remember, which is that you're a patriot, that you served with honor, that you did your duty, that the truth is less important than the stability of civilization. The boarding announcement came through the speakers. Final call for flight 1947 to Christchurch. I noticed the flight number. Couldn't help but notice. They're not even subtle, I said. They don't need to be. Subtlety is for situations where the outcome isn't certain. This outcome was certain the moment the photograph was taken in 1947. You're just catching up to a moment that already happened. I stood up. My legs were shaking, 94 years old, body failing, mind full of memories that might not be mine. If I go back, I said. If I close the loop, what happens then? Harris looked at me with something that might have been pity, or envy, or both. Then you understand, he said. Then you see the full picture. Then you know why we've been protecting this secret for 78 years, why we've been managing the truth, why we've been containing the spread. Tell me now. I can't. You have to see it. You have to be there. You have to become the old man in the photograph so that the young man can enter, so that the old man can exist, so that the loop can sustain itself, so that what? Harris's expression changed. For the first time he looked human, looked afraid, so that it doesn't spread beyond containment. James, what you saw in 1947 was just one structure, one facility. There are 17 more, scattered across Antarctica, across the Arctic, beneath the ocean, under deserts, in mountains, everywhere humans shouldn't be able to survive but do anyway. 17 nurseries, 17 that we know of, and every single one is waking up. Every single one is starting to harvest. The structure you saw, it's calling to the others, has been calling since you damaged it in 1947, and they're answering, all of them, synchronizing, preparing for something. Preparing for what? Harris checked his watch, a gesture that felt rehearsed, scripted. Your flight is leaving. If you're going to close the loop, you need to board now. Answer the question. Preparing for what? He looked at me one final time. Integration, he said. Full integration. They've been cultivating humanity for 2 million years, testing, modifying, perfecting, and apparently the harvest window is closing. Climate change is melting the ice. Satellite technology is improving. It's getting harder to keep the structures hidden, so they're accelerating the timeline. How many people? We estimate 200,000 globally over the next 5 years. All ages, all demographics, all will disappear without explanation. All will be found eventually, in chambers, in suspension, still alive, none remembering how they got there. And if I close the loop, if I go back, then maybe we buy more time. The paradox satisfies them. The loop completion gives them what they need, and they postpone full integration. Give us another generation, another chance to understand what we're dealing with, another chance to prepare humanity for the truth. Or you've been played. And closing the loop is exactly what triggers full integration, and I've been lying to you for this entire conversation. And everything I've said is designed to make you get on that plane. And you'll never know which version is true until you're standing in that structure, 78 years in your past, watching your younger self walk through the door. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal. Flight 1947, Gate 47, Seat 14A. I looked at Harris, at the gate, at the window showing the tarmac, the plane, the door still open, the stairs still in place. I thought about Dr. Chen, walking into the ocean. They're still growing me. I thought about Hayes, every light on, checking every closet, afraid of the dark he'd seen under the ice. I thought about Mitchell, disappearing in Alaska, following his grandmother into whatever fate awaited them both. I thought about the voice. Multiple vocal cords, harmonic distortion. Don't worry, you're already here. You've always been here. You'll always be here. I made my choice, but I'm not going to tell you what it was, because this testimony, this document you're reading, was written by someone who might be sitting in an Antarctic structure right now, watching his younger self walk through a door 78 years ago, or it was written by someone sitting in a comfortable room, with guards outside, with modified memories, with a life that's a lie but a comfortable lie. Or it was written by something that looks like me but isn't me, something that's been integrated, modified, perfected, and is writing this testimony as one final data point in the study of human truth-seeking behavior post-trauma. The loop doesn't need you to know which version is true. It just needs you to wonder, because wondering is how it spreads. Questioning is how it grows, and doubt, existential, crushing, maddening doubt, is how it harvests. You're reading this testimony, right now, in your present, which means it survived, was preserved, made it out of classification, found its way to you. Ask yourself, how? Who released it? Why now? What purpose does it serve? And when you look in the mirror tonight, before you sleep, watch your reflection carefully. Watch to see if it moves exactly when you move, or if there's a lag, just a fraction of a second. Just long enough to suggest that maybe, just maybe, your reflection is making its own choices, because that's how you'll know they've started growing you. That's how you'll know you're already part of the loop. That's how you'll know that reading this testimony wasn't random chance. It was appointment. And you've always been scheduled to be here, reading this, right now.